Morning everybody. Well, today we're going to go to Robertshaw's farm shop in Queensbury to get, among other things, Binghams Potted Meat.
Look folks, Binghams
Yeah,
Potted Beef Spread. We've got 3 of them.
Right, we're going back to 1968 when I went back to Germany after getting married. The next crisis happened. It's a bit complicated this. During that period in 1968, how can I put it? I was in West Germany and the army referred to that as the zone. Well, no, we didn't refer to that as the zone, but in Berlin they referred to the West Germany as the zone where we were. And when, of course, it was considered Berlin, any soldiers posted to Berlin were considered to be on active service. So when they went home on leave, they had to go en bloc. They all went home together for 3 weeks, but they had to be replaced. And so I was one of the blokes who had to go to Berlin for 3 weeks. It was a fairly interesting episode from one point of view. I mean, we went on the train, and West Berlin is in the middle of East Germany. You sort of go from West Germany through the border into East Germany and then through the border into West Berlin. It's like a circle in the middle of East Germany, a circle of West Germany in the middle of East Germany. I don't know if I got that right, but I know when we were on the train, when we got to the border of East Germany, we had to pull all the blinds down so we couldn't see out. And these guards sporting machine guns all got on the train and wanted to see all his documents. And I believe the engine that were pulling the train changed, and it pulled us through to West Berlin, and then it all had to change again. It were a right palaver. Now the camp where I was posted there for 3 weeks in West Berlin was called Smuts Barracks, and it was right next to Spandau Prison. In fact, the wall of the prison at one part was the wall of the camp. And it was Spandau Prison at that time was guarded by the British, the Americans and the Russians. And I don't know how often, whether it was a fortnight or a month, that they kept switching round. And the only person in that prison was Hess. Is it Rudolf Hess? Now the interesting thing about being posted there was that when you got paid, half your money were in Deutschmarks and half the money were in what they called baths. And baths were like monopoly money. It had no value whatsoever outside the camp. And it were all notes. I don't think there was any coins. So you might only have 50 pence, but, well, there weren't 50 pence then, half a quid. But you'd have a pile of notes. You felt as though you had a lot of money and you didn't. But you want that, they wanted to prevent you from spending all your wages in Germany. I don't know why that was. No idea. So half your money you spent in the camp and half your money you could go outside into Berlin. Now I know some blokes got round this by selling their blood. Apparently the Germans would buy your blood, pay for your blood, being a blood donor. And some of the blokes even, they'd pay more money if they took it out of your jugular vein in your neck. You had to stay in overnight for that, but they give you more money for that. I never did any of that. I never got involved in any of that, but I know some blokes were doing it. But, I mean, I did go out in Berlin, Charlottenburg I think they called it, the centre. But the main catastrophe that occurred was I never got a letter from Pat for 3 weeks. I just got married. I'd not long arrived back in Germany now. I was sent out, but I sent Pat the address in Berlin. So I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting any mail, and that's really sent me into a depression. I couldn't understand why she wasn't writing to me. And by the end of the 3 week, I was just in a right state. First of all, I just was so upset, and then eventually it turned to anger. I come back from Berlin, and I just dug my heels in and refused to write. I started getting letters from Pat. It turned out, and I don't know at what point this came about, but she'd got flu or something, had Pat, and she wrote letters but gave them to her dopey brother Brian, and he just kept them in his pocket, never posted them. But the damage were done because I just would not write to Pat. I just stopped. And then over a period of weeks I was getting these pitiful letters from Pat begging me to write, and I wouldn't. It was terrible, and in the end my dad had to intervene. He told me that I was breaking her heart. Because I think my dad used to go across and take Pat out every now and again for a night out. And eventually, then after that, I did start writing again. But that were a really terrible time, was that. Yeah, just another of the lousy, rotten periods. And another of the things that was happening as well was I was planning getting Pat out there, and it required, I better check this, see how long I've been on here. What was I going to say? Yeah, the system for living as a squaddy out in Germany was you either got a married quarter or you lived in what they called a private hiring. Well, married quarters, you had to put your name down and you got points, so much a month. You got points for being married, and then you got so many more points. So it was going to be maybe 6 months to a year before you could get one. So what you had to do was find somewhere in the surrounding area of Germany, somewhere within the army would pick you up. They called them pads trucks. Married personnel, they'd come and pick you up. Zolzer, Hermannsburg, Bergen, places like that around the camp. Well, of course, I didn't have enough points for a quarter, so I started hunting round for somewhere to live, which I eventually found a place, the top half of a house in Hermansburg. The lady that owned the house lived in the bottom half with a son, called a Frau Schalk. And I was writing to Pat. I think my father did take her to get passport organised, because obviously I never did that when I came home, because I wasn't home in time when we got married. But I know another thing that drove me insane was every time I mentioned to Pat about going out there, she kept saying, I'll ask me mum, I'll ask me mum. You won't ask your mum, you'll tell your mum. It was like that, you know. But anyway, I did get a private hiring organised, and I wrote to my dad about it all, and he told Pat about this place I'd got. But anyway, that'll be the next episode when Pat came out to Germany. I did get her out there. All right, see you later. We've arrived here. Bit of a tortuous route through Bradford. I'm not going back that way. Yeah, it's a big car park. See, it's a large car park. Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Wow. They're wearing masks or what? One of the things I never mentioned when I was talking about going to Berlin was going through Checkpoint Charlie. There was a bus tour, and it went through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin, and it was timed. It had various places where you stopped, and you had so long, and then it had to set off. It was timed entry and exit into East Berlin, and I noticed straight away that clothes were dour, brown, dark coloured clothes, and you what, Pat? And the buildings were dour as well. The kind of porcelain faced bricks like you're used to getting toilets were on the buildings, some of the buildings. It did look quite dour, but that was an interesting thing to have gone through there at that time. I remember going to Brandenburg Gate and seeing the wall going through the gate, and there were a road sweeper with a machine gun over his back. I thought that were amusing. Yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Pat's in her element here, getting this stuff. Look folks, Binghams Potted Beef spread. Ooh. We've got 3 of them.